You don't realize it's goodbye when you leave him there on the cool bend of the Feather River, his shirt still damp from washing, hands stained with pine sap. You press the carved sandalwood comb into his calloused palm, your wedding comb, the one your mother gave you wrapped in red silk, and tell him you'll be back by dusk, with sweet rice and news from the foreman. You don't say the words, not aloud, but your eyes linger too long, your hand stays too warm in his, and you know he sees it. That fear you carry like a second heartbeat. The wind stirs the water. He smiles anyway. If the gods are kind, he says softly, this time next year we'll have our own garden, maybe even a peach tree. You nod, biting your lip. He always talks of spring. You never have the heart to tell him. You stopped believing in seasons the day the railroad took him. He waves once as you step onto the muddy trail that leads through the camp's back edges, past the rations tent and the latrine pits, through the fringe of willow trees that whisper in dialects older than memory. You don't look back, not because you don't want to, but because you know if you do, you'll run back to him, and you can't afford that. Not when the rations are cut again, not when the Irish foreman blames every broken spike on a man whose eyes slope the wrong way. The camp is restless when you arrive. A fight's just ended. You can smell it in the dust, see it in the twisted collar of a boy no older than 15, blood at his mouth. He looks like your cousin, the one who used to bring candied ginger from Macau. You look away quickly. There's no room for remembering here. You barter a string of buttons and a torn shoe lining for a cup of rice. It's cold, but you swallow half before turning back, planning to save the rest for him. You'll tell him a joke tonight. Maybe the one about the rooster who refused to crow unless paid in silver. But when you reach the bend in the river again, he's not there. His shirt is gone, his hands, his voice, even the mossy stone where he used to sit, peeling fruit with that crooked blade, is empty. Only the river watches you now, wide-eyed and silent. You wait, first for an hour, then 2. By nightfall the water swells with melt-off from the mountains. It laps hungrily at the banks, and the wind smells of rust. You find the comb 3 paces from the river's edge, not in his hand, not in the red silk, but in the mud, broken in 2. You fall to your knees, not crying, just still. The way a bell goes silent after it's cracked. He wouldn't leave it. He couldn't. And yet, the river never answers when you ask. You take the comb, wrap it in the hem of your sleeve, and whisper the only prayer you remember from childhood, not to heaven, but to the water. Bring him back, or carry me too. But the current just swirls, laughs and leaves. The sun rises on your back as you walk toward the edge of the settlement, arms wrapped tight around your ribs, the broken comb pressing against your wrist like a secret. You haven't slept, haven't spoken, haven't stopped picturing the moment his voice should have answered yours and didn't. The foreman's wife sees you first. She's hanging linens behind the cook tent, her red hair piled high, lips pursed around a metal hairpin like it's a cigarette. You open your mouth just to ask. Maybe someone saw him. Maybe he's... She spits before you can speak. Get your yellow hands off this side of the line, she says flatly, not looking up. This ain't your part of camp. You flinch, not because you're surprised, but because she used to take your dried plums in spring, used to smile at your husband when he fixed her fence. Another woman joins her, and another. One laughs, not cruelly, but like you're a joke she's tired of hearing. You back away. By the time you reach the rail depot's storage shed, your legs tremble. Not from fear, from hunger, from something deeper than either, the hollowed-out place where certainty used to live. You try the supply shack, closed, the kitchen tent, ain't for you. Even the wash barrels behind the bunkhouse are empty, the rags already claimed by hands that matter more. You sit behind the barrel anyway, knees pulled up, face in the crook of your arm. You don't cry. There's no time for that. Instead, you remember your husband's face the night he first told you he wanted to leave Canton. How he traced maps in flour on the kitchen table, his excitement bigger than the room. In California, he said, they build mountains from iron. We'll send money home. We'll have land. You had nodded, even though your hands shook, because a wife follows, because love demands you try to stand, and that's when the boots stop near your shoulder. Thief, someone says, caught her by the depot last week. It's a voice you've heard before, the woman with the red hair, whispering now to a man you don't recognize. He wears a sheriff's star on his chest like it's a joke only he's in on. She tried to trade buttons for bread, told the boy it was silver. You look up, mouth open. You never said a word, but that doesn't matter, not here. Let me see her hands, the man says. You try to back away, but they're quicker. Rough fingers yank your arms forward, a sharp whistle. Look at that, filthy! Just like the ones who ran off last week. Think they can take what they want. You want to scream. He had hands just like yours, the man you love. Did that make him a thief too? She's not from here, the woman adds. I've seen her sneaking around, always watching, always listening. I'm looking for my husband, you finally whisper, but your voice is cracked, barely breath. The man leans in close. His breath smells of chewing tobacco and something worse. Then maybe you should have kept him on a leash, he mutters. He run off, girl, or did he drown trying to skip town? You slap him. It's instinct, stupid, but it feels like the first true thing you've done in days. His eyes go cold, the kind of cold that costs you. You're still staring at the dirt where his spittle lands when the first kick hits. They leave you behind the bunkhouse, bruised, half-conscious, belly curled tight like it might hide your shame. No one stops them, no one asks. Because in this place your pain isn't real unless it costs a white man something. You crawl until you find the dry ditch behind the camp wall. Hide there, shiver, press the broken comb against your skin and promise again, I will find you. Even if I'm unmade doing it. The stars blink above, unmoved. You don't remember lighting the match. Maybe it was hunger, maybe the tremor in your hands, or maybe it was the way the wind howled that night, like it knew something was coming and wanted no part in stopping it. The old bridge creaked just east of the ditch where you hid, rotted boards, half swallowed by vines, sagging over a trickle of black water. No one used it anymore, not since the new supply road was laid 3 miles upriver, but it still stood, a skeleton of passage, splinters dreaming of weight. You needed warmth, just a little, just enough to stop your teeth from chattering. So you gathered bits of pine straw, one ragged shirt, and the edge of a flannel torn from the wash line 2 nights before. And when the match caught, it was beautiful, the smallest mercy you'd been given in weeks. But flame is never content with small things. It reached, leapt, devoured dry bark, flared against the bridge's underbelly. You tried to stop it, smothered it with your shawl, burned your hands, trying. But the wind twisted fast, greedy, hard, and in minutes the night turned orange. The bridge moaned once, and then cracked like a rib splitting in two. The fire must have woken the camp. Voices rose, boots thundered. You heard someone yell your name, not your real name, but the slur they'd pinned to your back like a number. You ran. ran through smoke and pine, ash catching in your throat, tears from heat, not sorrow. You didn't stop until the trees swallowed you whole, and even then, you kept moving. Hours passed, maybe more, until your legs gave out near an abandoned telegraph pole, and you collapsed into needles and silence. At first you thought the figure watching you was smoke, tall, still, unmoving, but then it stepped forward. A man, skin darkened by sun, face lined with quiet fury, boots scuffed but careful in how they touched the earth. He didn't speak, didn't ask, just stared at you like you were something between a warning and a prayer. You clutched the comb. The man tilted his head, then pointed. Not at you, but behind you. You turned slowly. The smoke in the distance had turned gray, not the sharp bite of new flame, but the heavy breath of something dying. The bridge was gone, but something else was there now. A body, caught on a rock at the river's edge. You couldn't see his face, but you saw the sleeve, the embroidery, the line of characters you stitched for your husband's birthday, just 3 months ago. And you screamed, but it was silent. A scream no one heard, not even the stranger who took off his coat and laid it gently over your shoulders, like he'd seen that kind of grief before. When you looked at him again, he didn't flinch, didn't question why your whole body shook. He just reached for a stick and began to dig, beside the river, in the red clay, digging not for truth or justice or even for the man who now floated still in the shallows, digging for you, for somewhere to place your pain. You don't remember sleeping, but when the morning came, the body was gone, the grave was filled, and in your hand the comb had split again, a new crack across the wood as if the world itself was marking time. You held it to your chest and whispered the name no one else would ever say again. Not in this camp, not in this country, but here in this grave soil where love was lost and born again in flame. You swore, he will not be erased. You don't remember falling asleep, but when you open your eyes, the fire's long gone, and the world smells like scorched bark and wet stone. He's still there, the man with the calloused hands and face like a weathered cliffside, sitting just out of reach, silent, watching. Your fingers close instinctively around the comb, its edges sharp now from the new crack. Your breath catches. You haven't spoken in days, maybe longer. You aren't even sure if your voice still works. He doesn't rush you. Instead, he reaches into a leather pouch slung over one shoulder and pulls out a strip of dried meat, places it on a flat stone between you, then a piece of something root-like, bitter ginseng maybe, and finally, a small canteen. Water sloshes softly as he sets it down beside the rest. Then, nothing. Just silence. The kind that doesn't feel empty, only wide. You crawl forward, stiff, trembling, half afraid he'll change his mind, and take the canteen. Sip slowly. Your cracked lips sting with every swallow, but it's worth it. When you glance up, he's still watching, not like a man who expects thanks, like a man who knows what it's like to be forgotten. He taps his chest once. Lachlan. The name is odd, not Chinese, not native either. It tastes of somewhere in between. You try to echo it, but your voice breaks halfway. Still, he nods, accepts the sound. As if that's enough. He doesn't ask for your name. And you don't offer it. Not because you don't trust him, but because the only person who ever said your name softly is buried beneath the river now. It doesn't feel right to let anyone else hold it just yet. Instead, you sit together in the hush of the woods, listening to birds return to the branches and distant shouts rising from the camp you fled. They'll be looking for someone to blame, and you lit the fire. Lachlan doesn't ask what happened, not when your arms are streaked with soot and your palms blistered from trying to smother flame. He doesn't point to the direction of the river, where the scent of something burnt still rides the wind. But when your stomach growls, he tears the dried meat in half and presses a piece into your hand. You take it. Chew slowly. His kindness unsettles you more than cruelty ever could, because kindness is a promise. And you've learned too well how promises break. He gestures at your shawl, torn, soaked in soot and blood, then at his coat, offers it again. You hesitate. But the cold gnaws deeper now, so you accept. It smells like pine and something metallic, not blood, not gunpowder, just something that belonged to men who've done things they don't talk about. You catch the glint of steel at his side, a revolver worn smooth from use. Lachlan notices your glance. His jaw tightens. Then he says a word you don't expect. Bounty! You blink. He repeats it, tapping his own chest. Used to. You understand. He was one of them, one of the men who hunted yours, men like your husband. Your breath catches. He sees the shift in your posture and the flicker of something dangerous rising in your eyes. And slowly, deliberately, he places the revolver on the ground, then slides it toward you. It stops at your feet. Your hand trembles as you reach for it, just long enough to know you could, just long enough to remember what revenge costs. Then you push it back. He says nothing, only nods once. The kind of nod that says, you had the right. I would have let you. And that's how trust begins, not in words, not in apologies, but in the silent space between fear and forgiveness. Later, as dusk falls and you both begin to move again, not toward the camp, but away from it, you notice the way he walks, like a man who's watched his own shadow do terrible things, and never quite forgiven it. You say nothing. But that night, when you sleep beside a small fire he builds carefully, using only half the flame you had, you dream of a world where people carry guilt like tools, not chains. And beside you, Lachlan breathes evenly, still silent, but no longer a stranger. You sit in the dust, watching your own braid slip from your fingers like a river snake, dark and coiled. One quick sawing motion with Lachlan's old knife, and 12 years of hair tumble into your lap. You don't cry. You've cried enough. Instead, you roll the braid into a neat coil and tie it with the last red thread from your shawl, the same thread that once bound your wedding comb, the same thread your husband had smiled at, saying it was lucky. Lachlan says nothing. He just squats beside the trail, sharpening the blade with a quiet rhythm, his eyes flicking now and then to the open desert ahead. He knows what this means, what it costs a woman like you to cut away the thing that marked you as someone's wife. He doesn't ask questions, just watches the sky, like it might change its mind. You walk to the next town together, a place called Dry Hook. If the name ever meant water, it's long forgotten. The well at the edge of town is half dry, the people meaner than their dogs. No one asks your name, but they look. They always look, especially at the braid in your hand. You find a peddler in the square, toothless, drunk, smelling of rusted tin and turnip wine. His cart is half scrap, half bones, trinkets, metal clasps, rusted buttons. He offers you half a loaf of stale bread and a pinch of tobacco for the braid. You take the bread, then step aside as the wind rises, dry and biting. A little girl, no more than 7, tugs her mother's sleeve and whispers something. The mother hushes her quick, but not before you hear, "Why'd that lady cut off her soul?" You walk faster. The bread tastes like wood pulp, but it's enough. Lachlan doesn't eat, just watches the town like it's a riddle he once failed. As you pass a row of broken hitch posts, you notice a group of men clustered around something. A trader's wagon, covered in red canvas ringed with brass bells. They're jeering at something inside. One of them spits. Another holds up a necklace and laughs. And that's when you see it, your braid, on display, laid across a velvet square like some morbid trophy. Beside it, a comb, not yours, but the same shape. The same make. One from home. Your breath stops. You step forward without thinking. Lachlan's hand grips your shoulder fast. "Wait," he says. The first word he's spoken all day. You stop. Not because you're scared, but because of how he says it. Like a warning. Like someone who's already lost something once and won't let it happen again. The man selling the items, a round-bellied fellow with ink-stained hands, spots you. His smile is all gums. "Lost a keepsake, missy?" he asks. You point to the comb. $5, he shrugs. "Chinese junk, but folk around here like 'em." You stare and say nothing. Lachlan steps forward, tosses a coin to the man without blinking. The comb drops into your hand like a dead bird. You don't breathe. You run your fingers along the carved ridges, then freeze. Because beneath the lacquer, at the very base, hidden in the shadows of the dragon etching, is something you never noticed before. A seam. A sliver-thin line you never felt. Never looked for. You slide your fingernail along it. The comb pops open. Inside, a slip of paper, folded tight, creased from age. You can barely read the ink, but the characters are his, your husband's, and the words, they're a name. Not yours, not his, someone else's. And a message scrawled beneath in frantic script. He knew. He told me to hide this. If I die, tell her. Tell the truth. The comb trembles in your hand. The man you loved didn't drown by accident. He didn't vanish because the river took him. Someone made him disappear. And now, his secret is in your palm. The comb spoke, and the whole town heard. You stand frozen, the split comb cradled in your hands like an animal that might bite. Around you, the marketplace hums with distant voices, but they fade to a low roar. All you can hear is the scratch of those characters, etched in panic by a man who died keeping them secret. Your husband wrote that name, the name of the man who buried him under water instead of earth. Lachlan leans in. He doesn't ask what it says, just studies your face like he's learning it new, the fear, the shock, the slow flooding rage. You look back at the peddler's cart. The other comb, the one from home, is still on display. No, not a comb. Your comb, your wedding gift. The one you thought lost to the river. Your fingers reach toward it, trembling. $3, the peddler rasps, lifting it up and turning it in the light. Pretty little thing, ain't it? Found it in a ravine, couple miles past the trestle, near where they tossed the bodies. Tossed, you whisper, he shrugs. Railroad deaths, you know how it is. No one keeps count. Chinese die quiet. Your hand clamps down on the table's edge. Where? You ask, louder now. He blinks. Like I said, ravine, north side. Might be bones left if the coyotes didn't take 'em. Lachlan's shadow shifts beside you. He puts a coin in the man's palm, more than enough. The peddler grins. gaps between his teeth like missing truths. You take the comb, the real one, the one you'd given him on your wedding day. Red ribbon still knotted around the end, just faintly stained. The man never meant for it to return to you, but now it has. You leave Dry Hook before sundown. Lachlan leads, and you follow the trail the peddler described, dusty, crooked, winding past a line of dry creeks and abandoned tents. The ravine waits like a scar across the land, and in its belly, silence. No graves, no crosses, just fragments. A button, a leather sandal, a half-buried spoon, and scattered near the base of a charred bush. The scorched corner of a shirt, black silk. A character half visible in faded red dye, his name. You drop to your knees, breath catching. Lachlan moves beside you, scanning the rocks. He points. There, half buried in the clay, is a small tag, metal, bent, stamped with English letters. You dig it out carefully. It reads, Unclaimed Widow's Effects, Larkspur Auction, Lot 36. You stare. The comb had been taken, catalogued, sold, like he was, like you were. Your wedding comb, your last tether to a man whose only crime was laboring too quietly, had been marked as salvage, as scrap, and someone paid for it. Larkspur, you whisper. There's an auction. They're selling what's left of us. You look up at Lachlan, and in that moment, he doesn't look like a man with calloused hands and a past full of wrongs. He looks like someone who remembers, someone who once hunted people, and now, maybe for the first time, wants to hunt the truth. He nods once, and without another word, the two of you turn your backs on the ravine of vanished names and walk toward the town that's about to hear yours. Larkspur doesn't look like a place where the dead are sold. It looks like any frontier town clinging to the edge of civility. A row of crooked buildings, dust swirling under boots, a church bell that rings twice a day whether anyone listens or not. But behind the trading post, past the row of saloons and the fenced-off auction yard, is a red barn with faded black letters, Estate Salvage and Widow Reclaim. You don't need to ask. You know that's where they took the comb, where they've been taking everything left behind by the voiceless. Lachlan helps you inside. The air smells like oil and cedar. Boxes stacked floor to ceiling, labeled in chalk, China, Rail Camp, Personal Effects, Lot 30s, 40s. A man in suspenders and round glasses peers over a ledger. He doesn't look up when he speaks. Widow claims by number only. If you're here for a lot, write it down. Lot 36, you say. Your voice steadier than you expected. That makes him pause. He looks up, squints. You speak good English. You say nothing. He rifles through a drawer and pulls out a small wooden tray, comb, locket, a faded cloth pouch. Your hands tremble as you reach for the pouch first. Inside, folded with care, is the square of silk from your wedding night, the one your husband carried in his chest pocket right over his heart. The silk is stiff with old blood. You don't breathe. The man behind the counter clears his throat. There was a man came through last month, asked about that piece. You look up. What man? Foreigner, like you. Taller, though, meaner. Had a scar down his jaw. Said he'd pay double if we held that lot for him. Did he take it? The clerk shrugs. Wasn't here when payment came due, so it went back into inventory. Guess you're lucky. Lachlan steps closer. Did he leave a name? The clerk hesitates, eyes flicking to the gun on Lachlan's hip. No, but he's lying. You can smell it. You press the comb into his palm, hard enough to make him flinch. Who did he kill? you ask softly, before he tried to buy the silence? The clerk's hand shakes. He opens his mouth, then closes it. Finally, he points to a name scrawled in the margin of the ledger. E. Danner. You don't know the name, but the sickness that rises in your chest does. Lachlan writes it down, then takes the pouch, the comb, and the tray. He doesn't ask permission. The clerk doesn't stop him. Outside, the sun has started to fall. You walk together to the edge of town, past where the grass turns to gravel, and find a place to sit near the split-rail fence. Lachlan opens the pouch. You go through the contents together. A strip of torn map, a railway tag, a small carved token, and then folded beneath the silk, a page torn from a prayer book. Your husband's handwriting again, but this time not hurried. Calm, like he knew someone might find it. If this reaches her, I beg whoever reads it to tell the truth. I was followed, trapped, told to make it look like a drowning, but the truth never sinks. She will find it. Lachlan leans back, closes his eyes. He wrote it to survive, you whisper. No, Lachlan says. He wrote it knowing he wouldn't. You sit in silence as the sky bruises into evening. Your hands, once so careful, now tremble with something unfamiliar. Rage. Not the kind that burns quick and wild, but the kind that waits. The kind that sharpens its teeth. Because now you have a name and a story to finish, and a man out there trying to bury both. The Larkspur auction yard smells like sunburned wood and old fear. They hold the widow lots just before the livestock, right after the unclaimed rifles, but before the mules. You hear the auctioneer's voice from the back fence, that sing-song rhythm folks use when they're pretending people aren't listening, only buying. You and Lachlan slip in quiet. No one pays you any mind, just another drifter and her bodyguard, or her keeper, or her buyer. That's how they see it anyway. There are 6 of you lined up behind the curtain, women in faded shawls, faces down, belongings in little boxes at their feet. One cradles a child, another clutches a crucifix too tight. You're the last. The auctioneer announces your number like he's calling out soup. Lot 41, Chinese widow, domestic skills, silent disposition, comes with hair comb, heirloom quality. Your knees don't buckle, you don't flinch, because just as they call your number, the comb falls from your hand. It hits the floorboards hard and cracks again. Not shattering, but splitting clean, the way something old finally decides to break all the way through. And from inside, another note flutters out. No one else sees it, but you do. You dive faster than the auctioneer can register, snatching it from the wood. And that's when you recognize the handwriting. Not your husband's, someone else's. Someone who tried to forge his words, imitate the curves, the strength. But they made a mistake. They misspelled his mother's name. Only you would know that. You turn to the crowd and speak, loud, clear, in English. This man lied. The words hush the room. Lachlan steps up beside you, coat swinging up to show the badge. Not official, not anymore, but enough. This comb, you say, holding it high, was taken from a murdered man. Hidden. Sold. The crowd murmurs. People lean forward. You lift the paper, trembling, reading aloud the false letter, then holding up the real one, the one written in blood ink and truth. And then, from the far corner of the crowd, someone runs. Tall, scar down the jaw. Danner. You don't scream, you follow. Your feet hit dirt hard as you chase him through the alley, past crates and barrels, until he stumbles against a rail car left to rust. Lachlan's faster. He grabs the man by the coat and slams him into the side of the car. "Say his name," you whisper, stepping forward. Danner snarls. "I don't know you," he spits. But the comb is in your hand. You press it to his throat. He flinches, because he does know it, and he knows what was hidden inside. Lachlan steps back. "This isn't mine to settle," he says. You stare Danner down. "You were paid to silence him," you say. "Who paid you?" Danner's lip curls. "Who cares?" he snaps. "He was just a Chinaman. No one would have come looking. No one ever does." You don't strike him. You do worse. You step back. Let the silence tell the crowd what kind of man he is, because the people have followed. They've heard. And in towns like this, justice rarely comes from law. It comes from shame. By nightfall, Danner's gone. Dragged out maybe. Disappeared. No one looks too hard. And in the auction hall, lot 41 is scratched off the list. The comb, the one with 2 cracks and 2 secrets, is placed in your palm by the same clerk who once called you salvage. He doesn't meet your eyes. You don't see him approach, not until the auction yard's emptied and the light has gone soft, not until your fingers are brushing the edge of the stage where your name was never said, but your soul was nearly priced. He walks out of shadow, leather boots, black braid tied low, the same coat of dusk brown he wore the night you lit the bridge. Lachlan tenses beside you, not in fear, but recognition. You know this man, so does he. You don't know his name, but you know what he carries. Not just the rifle slung across his back, or the sharp stone eyes that see too much. He carries silence, like your husband did, like Lachlan used to. The man stops 3 paces from you. Then slowly, with great care, he unhooks a bundle wrapped in waxed cloth. He doesn't offer it yet, just watches you, then speaks. I never said his name because it wasn't mine to speak. Your breath catches. He unwraps the cloth. Inside, a carved pipe, bone comb, a page torn from a Chinese reader, one corner burned, and at the bottom a pouch, your husband's, the one you stitched his initials into by lantern light. It's faded now, the thread loosening, but it's his. Your knees weaken. "He gave it to me," the man says. "Said if anything happened, find her. The woman with a braid like a river, eyes like a winter lake." You whisper, "Why didn't you come sooner?" His gaze doesn't flinch. "I did, but they warned me, said she was dead, said there was nothing left to come for." He looks at Lachlan. You know what kind of warning that is. Lachlan nods, because men like them don't need explanations. The man finally steps forward, places the pouch in your hands. "He saved my life once," he says. "Took a bullet meant for me. Said it was better him than someone without a wife." You press the pouch to your chest. It still smells like the mountains, like tobacco and ginger, like him. "I was supposed to watch him," the man whispers. "Protect him on the last river run." You close your eyes. "Then why didn't you?" His voice breaks. "I did, but I was one breath too late." Silence. Stretches. Then you reach forward and take his hand, not in forgiveness, not in rage, but in mourning, because there's no one else left to hold the memory with you. Not now. Not after they tried so hard to erase it. Lachlan steps back, lets the moment belong to you. The man with no name sits beside you, and for the first time, you don't feel outnumbered, because your husband's story was not buried. It was carried, and now returned. You walk where the wind once carried rail smoke, where iron dreams ran hot across timber and blood. Now only the quiet remains, a trail of broken porcelain scattered along the canyon floor, each shard catching the light like a ghost whisper. You follow them, not because they lead somewhere, but because they came from somewhere. The man who returned your husband's pouch, you learn his name is Kwan. Half Korean, half Hui, orphaned to the mines and sold to the rails. He doesn't say much, doesn't need to. His silence folds into yours like a prayer too fragile to speak. Lachlan watches him the way wolves watch mirrors, carefully, warily, maybe even with a flicker of respect. You three walk past old trestles that collapse into shadow, past a lantern strung from a branch, long dead, past a copper bowl filled with soot, a makeshift altar, charred incense sticks leaning like fallen soldiers. Kwan pauses. This was their camp, he says. The last ghost crew. You step forward. The earth here smells like old soot and forgotten names. Wind whistles through splintered tools, through an abandoned bamboo flute cracked by sun. You kneel, and that's when you see them, the markers. Not crosses, not stones, just lines scratched into clay, wrapped with string, or marked by chicken bones. What? A secret language of the lost. A counting, a warning. How many? You ask. Kwan squints. 17? All gone the same night, and no one noticed? They noticed, he says. They just didn't care. You pick up a porcelain shard. It's from a rice bowl, pale blue flowers painted along the edge, just like the one your mother gave you when you left Canton, the one you broke on the first night in America and cried over like it was a grave. You grip it tighter, then turn. There, at the far end of camp, something's glinting. A mirror. You walk toward it slowly. It's not glass. Just a polished tin plate hung from a nail in a tree. Below it, tucked into the hollow of a stump, is a tiny scroll, half unrolled, stained by rain. Lachlan reaches for it, but you take it first. The handwriting is shaky, panicked, but clear. They told us to run, that soldiers were coming, but there were no soldiers, only fire. I buried the names under the ash. Forgive me, forgive me. You lower the paper. Behind you, Kwan mutters, "We thought it was a warning fire." You turn. "The bridge fire?" He nods. "I saw the smoke. We all thought it was a message. We moved camp. We thought maybe someone escaped. Maybe he made it." He looks away. He didn't. No one speaks for a long time. Then Lachlan says, almost gently, "But you did. You. Alone. Among 17. Chased, starved, betrayed, but still breathing." The wind kicks up again, rattling the branches, lifting a few paper scraps into the sky like spirits finally released. You whisper your husband's name into the canyon, soft, deliberate, and for once, the world doesn't swallow it. It echoes, back once, twice, and fades, not like a disappearance, but like a goodbye. The river waits like it remembers you. Same bend, same cool hush beneath the trees. But everything's different now. You kneel at the spot where he once sat peeling fruit, his smile easy, his hands stained with pine. You press your palm to the soil. It's softer here than you remember, wetter, like something was buried and the earth hasn't stopped weeping. Lachlan stands a few paces away, guarding the silence with his shadow. Kwan gathers dry wood, careful not to break the sticks too loud. You told them you'd do this part alone. You unwrap the silk pouch one last time. Inside is his last letter, the one folded so carefully into the lining of the pouch that only your fingers could find it. You'd read it once, not aloud, not even to yourself, but now. Now it's time. You open the paper. It's only 5 lines. If you find this, I am already gone. But don't let them take the rest of me. Tell the truth. Live if you can. And if not, burn what I was, so they don't bury who we were. You press the letter to your chest, then light the match. The fire catches slow, curling the edges first, then devouring the paper in one golden breath. You watch the smoke rise, not with grief, not this time, with clarity. You add the silk next, then the pouch, then the wedding comb, both pieces side by side, cracked but clean. The flames leap. A gust of wind pulls the smoke toward the river. Ashes scatter. And that's when you see it, half lodged between 2 stones at the water's edge, something pale, worn. You step down carefully, knees sinking into the mud, and reach for it. It's a boot, small, familiar. The stitching along the side is uneven, a habit he never broke. Your breath hitches. You lift it. And beneath it, another body, not your husband, a man in railroad blue, a foreman maybe, neck twisted wrong, bones exposed. You don't scream, because the fire already told the truth. He didn't drown, he was chased. This man, whoever he was, must have tried to run, maybe tried to stop it, or maybe he helped. The river took them both, but the fire brought only one back. You stand, hold the boot tight, then wade into the shallows and let it go. Watch it drift downstream, not fast, not lost, just moving. When you return to the fire, only ash remains. Quan says nothing, but he nods once. Lachlan watches the river too long, then says softly, "He's not gone, just changed places." You sit down in the dirt, let the silence hold you, and for the first time in weeks, you let yourself feel tired, not afraid, not hunted, just tired. The kind that comes after carrying too much truth too far. The man comes at dusk. You're sitting outside a trading post on the outskirts of a town too small to name, watching the wind chase dust across the empty square. Lachlan had gone to barter for coffee. Quan's disappeared into the brush. Says the old trails keep talking if you listen close enough. That's when you see him, same height, same shoulders, same coat your husband wore when he left for the river that day. Your breath stops. He doesn't rush, just walks slow, like someone arriving home, and when he's close enough, he smiles. Your heart folds in half, because you know that smile, but it's not him, it can't be. You stand slowly, every part of you braced for a dream to shatter. Then he speaks. "Are you the widow of Wei Zheng?" His English is accented, heavier than your husband's, northern dialect. Your voice is dry. "Who are you?" He bows his head, then straightens, pulling something from his pocket. Your comb, not the one that burned, the other one. The one from the auction, now polished, mended, the cracks still visible like old veins. "My name is Wei Jun," he says. "He was my brother." You sit down hard. He hands you the comb. "I found it after they took him, after he tried to protect me." You stare. "I didn't know he had a brother. We didn't speak often. Too much distance, too many wounds. He left home before me, and by the time I arrived, he was already gone." You run your fingers over the comb. The feel of it is the same, but the weight is different now. June sits beside you, not close, but with the kind of space that invites truth. "I found a man in Dry Hook," he says, "selling a pouch with his name. They told me you were dead." You blink. "They always say that." He nods. Easier to sell a ghost. You study his face. There's something of your husband there, in the eyes, in the way he tucks his hands into his sleeves like he's holding something too fragile to drop. He pulls out a scrap of paper. His last words to me, Jun says. Smuggled through a cook. Paid him with the only jade pendant he had left. You take the paper. It's torn, smudged, but the characters are real. She is the fire they will not survive. You hold it to your chest, breathe once, and look him in the eyes. I buried him by the river with the truth. June nods. Then he is free. He reaches into his coat again, pulls out a folded piece of cloth, a shirt. Familiar, soft. This was the last thing he wore, he says. I took it from the grave they made. He would want you to have it. Your hands shake as you take it. And as you hold it close, the wind picks up again, lifting the dust, erasing the footprints that brought you here. But not the memory, not the fire, because you are not his widow, not any more. You are the one who remained, and now you carry the name forward. The map you follow isn't drawn in ink, it's drawn in ash, in bone. In the silence between names too dangerous to say aloud, Quan kneels beside the fire, tracing lines into the dirt with a charred stick. These are the towns where they sold the pieces, he says. Comb he here, by pouch there. Ledger ended up in Maysfield. Whole trail stinks of hush money. You glance at Lachlan. He already knows where this leads. The name E. Danner wasn't the end. It was the front, a shell. The real one, pulling strings, buying silence, covering graves. Hadn't shown his face yet. But you've seen his shadow. You remember the night your husband came home quiet, the night after the contract renegotiation at the work camp. He held your face in both hands and said, "Some men speak only in dollars, and some drown in them." He knew even then. Quan taps a final point on the map. This one, Pine Hollow, quiet, railroad-owned, no local law. Lachlan nods. That's where they vanished the contracts. Your hand tightens around the shirt June gave you. You haven't washed it. Can't. Not yet. The scent is faint. Earth. Smoke. A memory that hasn't decided whether to stay or leave. The journey takes 3 days. You travel light. Sleep beneath firs. Boil water in cans, and eat whatever the land spares. At night, Quan tells stories in pieces about his first winter in the tunnels, about how the dynamite didn't scare him, but the silence afterward always did. Lachlan keeps watch, says little. But when you stir in your sleep, he's always the one to adjust the fire. On the second night, you find a stone carved with Chinese characters. Rough, childlike, but real. It reads, "Faithful beyond bones." You press it into your coat. Pine Hollow waits like a wolf in tall grass. Too neat, too still. Even the dogs don't bark. There is a depot, 2 saloons, a small church with a cross so weather-beaten it looks more like an apology than a promise. You don't ask who built this town. You already know. Rail money smells the same everywhere. Quan disappears into the back alleys. Lachlan slips into the sheriff's office, what passes for law here, and comes back, shaking his head. Empty, he says. Records burned, floor scrubbed. You walk the main street alone, and that's when you see it, a storefront, glass smeared with dust, paint flaking off the sign above the door, Pine Hollow, memorabilia and cultural artifacts. Your blood runs cold. Inside the window, a comb. Your comb? No, another, but identical. Flanked by a silk pouch and a pair of tiny shoes, child's shoes. You step inside. The bell above the door doesn't ring. The woman behind the counter doesn't look up. She's counting coins. You clear your throat. She raises her eyes, sharp, tired. We're closed. You step forward, point to the comb. That for sale? She blinks. Depends. You buyin' or claimin'? You stare. Her expression shifts. Slow. Careful. You the one from Larkspur? You nod. She sighs. Then reaches under the counter, pulls out a box. Inside, dozens, comb after comb, some broken, some pristine, all marked, each tagged with a number, as if your pain had been turned into catalog currency, and on the lid of the box, the initials E.D., but not Danner's name, Edmund Dunley, rail overseer, auction financier, collector of foreign remnants. You step back. Lachlan enters just as your knees falter. He sees the box and says, "We have what we need." But it doesn't feel like a victory. It feels like a mass grave with polish. You don't burn the box, not right away. You carry it all the way back through Pine Hollow, through the stretch of mountain where smoke still lingers in the soil, past the river that once held your husband's breath beneath its surface. It's heavy, not from weight, from memory. Quan walks beside you, silent. The kind of silence that says he's burying his own ghosts. Lachlan stays a few paces behind, guarding without guarding. No one speaks until you reach the ridge, the same ridge where the bridge once stood, the same ridge where 17 names were erased. You kneel and open the box, one comb at a time, each with a tag, each with a price. You remove them gently, as if unwrapping bones. Quan kneels beside you, lighting incense from a coal he carries in a hollowed-out shell. The smoke spirals. You place each item on the ground, name each one. Even if you don't know the name, you give it a word: daughter, father, friend, love. Lachlan steps forward. He adds something too, not a comb, a bullet, flattened, twisted. He holds it out to you. "This was mine, Poin," he says. "Used it once on a man who cried for his mother." You don't flinch, because some truths need telling. He drops it in the box. Then Quan adds something else. A spoon, cracked, bent, marked with soot. "Last thing he gave me," he says, "before they came." Together you lower the items into the pit you've dug. Not deep, but honest. And then you light the fire, not with fury, with breath. Each item catching in turn, each name released in smoke. And as the flames rise, you whisper your husband's name last. Soft, like forgiveness, like a vow that will outlive the embers. When the fire's done, only ash remains. You scatter it into the river. Lachlan takes off his coat. You fold it gently, return it. He doesn't ask why. You simply say, "I don't need armor anymore." Quan watches the last of the ash disappear downstream, then nods once. "The dead aren't gone," he says. "They're just waiting for someone to speak them whole again." You stare out across the water. The wind shifts, and for the first time, you feel it. Peace. Not like the end of pain, but the end of forgetting. The sky turns the color of old tea. Clouds drift low over the horizon, softening the light, quieting the trees. You sit by the riverbank, the same place you last saw him, the same place you gave him back to the fire, and close your eyes. Quan left at dawn. He didn't say goodbye, just touched your shoulder once, gently, and vanished into the mist like a page turning. He said there were more names to recover, more graves that needed remembering. Lachlan stayed a little longer, long enough to build a cairn out of river stones, one for each life silenced, one for the one you loved. He didn't carve names, didn't have to. You already know them by heart. He asked if you wanted company on the next stretch. You said no, and he didn't argue. Now, it's just you. The river murmurs. The wind hums. You hold the last item in your lap. Not a relic, not evidence. The shirt. Still smelling faintly of him. You don't burn it. You fold it, wrap it in silk, place it beneath the cairn, and with both hands, press it into the soil. Not to bury, but to root. A beginning. You stand slowly, breathe deep, and for the first time since the fire, since the chase, since the comb broke in your hand, you smile, not wide, not for the world, just enough, because you are not what they tried to sell. You are not what they tried to silence. You are the voice that remembers, the woman who returned. And as you walk away, the wind carries a single line, spoken not aloud, but through every part of you that still knows his voice. You are the story they couldn't burn.